everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the third consecutive year, and they're going to be taking on the Colorado Avalanche. And we are here today to break down this series, take a look at some keys to this series, take a look at the series schedule, all of that good stuff, and look at how this matchup might break down here as the Lightning look to win their third consecutive Stanley Cup. And joining me today, I have a very special guest. He is the producer for the one and only RBLR Sports. If you haven't checked them out, by the way, you need to go do that. I will link all of their stuff down low in the description. They cover all of the Tampa Bay sports, but he's also a closet Colorado fan. I know, don't freak out, but I brought him in for some expert opinion on Colorado. Yurika, thank you so much for coming to the show, man. How you doing?
What a wonderful introduction, Jake. Thank you so much. We have a great time, you and I, over at RBLR on the Lightning Pod, and I'm very happy to be here today to talk what I think we all are just chomping at the bit for this heavyweight fight.
Yeah, this has been the series that people have been asking for a couple of years now. I mean, people have been wanting the Lightning versus the Avalanche for a while, since both these teams have been at the top of the league, and we are finally getting it this year. So it should be a great matchup. But before we get into all of that, I want to bring up the schedule real quick for those of you who haven't seen it. I'll put it up on the screen now. Here is the series schedule. The series will kick off on Wednesday in Colorado. Game 1 at 8 p.m. All these games will be taking place at 8 p.m. Game 2, though, will not be on Friday. It's going to be on Saturday. That a 2-day gap in between games 1 and 2. And then when the Lightning come back home, will be on Monday for game 3, and then game 4 taking place on Wednesday again. And then game 5, which will be back in Colorado if necessary, of course, is on Friday. And then we have game 6 back in Tampa on Sunday. And then game 7, if necessary, would be back in Colorado on Tuesday, the 28th, and again at 8 p.m. So Yurika, pretty normal schedule there. They do have a 2-day break, but the first time in a while that the Lightning are playing the Avalanche in Colorado, which sometimes, for football games, they always talk about, has a big effect on players.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you as someone who's lived in both cities that it's the real deal. Going back, I can only imagine at an athletic competition, it is without a doubt a home field advantage to be a mile high when you're playing inside of Ball Arena, for sure.
And I think it was Halpern who was talking to the media today, and he said that it does take a toll on you, and mostly in the first periods where you got to adjust to that. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects the Lightning at all heading into these first couple of games, especially early in those first 20 minutes. But let's look at the previous games between these two teams. They've only played each other twice this year. The Lightning lost both of these games. Game 1 was a 4-3 shootout win for the Avalanche. Game 2 was a 3-2 win for the Colorado Avalanche as well. So Yurika, both games, 1-goal games, both very close, one being in the shootout. These two teams, despite Colorado being 2-0, are obviously very close on paper.
Yeah, and what's great is these teams are built in very similar ways. Both of these teams have top-level talent. They have very deep rosters, and we'll get into some of the people that might be the X factors, but neither of these teams go out and get the splashy guys. They get guys who fit the system, and because of that, we have a movable force and unstoppable force and movable object here that we're in for a treat. That's why we've all been really, really, really excited for these two teams.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And as we saw with the Rangers as well, that, it's important to remember that for the most part, these regular season games, they don't matter. The Rangers were undefeated against the Lightning in the regular season, but the playoffs, they are a completely different beast. They are different kinds of teams. Just because one team has won all the regular season games doesn't mean that's going to translate into the playoffs.
100%. We could take solace in knowing that they played really hard against each other for 2 games, but what those games mean right now, when there's the biggest trophy in hockey being contested against, and immortality is only 4 games away for a team, regular season stats mean nothing. So
let's take a look at the stats between these two teams, though, and we will take a look at the playoff stats. And actually, it's pretty similar, Yurika, of what it was against the Rangers, and both these teams are similar as well when you look at these stats. So for the power play, the Colorado Avalanche 31.1% on the power play, Lightning at 22.6%. So advantage goes to the Avalanche there. Meanwhile, for the penalty kill, Lightning are a little bit better in this category, 82.5%. Meanwhile, for the Avalanche, 75.7%. As for goals for and goals against, the Lightning goals for 3.06. The Avalanche, a whopping 4.64. So this team knows how to score. Goals against, though, that's where the Lightning come into play here. 2.41 goals against, Avalanche 2.86. So Yurika, probably the biggest thing you can notice there is the Lightning, clearly, at least for the playoff stats, the better defensive team, and then the Avalanche, the better offensive team. Two different styles of play kind of clashing here in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing I wanted to key on about the Avalanche is why they are so good. And let's be honest here, this is by far the best Avalanche team that they have had in 2 decades. And maybe as good as they've ever been anytime, even back to the Law, Forsberg, Sakic days. Okay. The biggest thing is they're resilient and they make you pay for your mistakes. I mean, you're looking right there, almost 1/3 of the time, they're going to put a goal in the net. If you have a too many men on the ice penalty, if you rough up, if something goes wrong, you've just put yourself at a disadvantage that 1 out of every 3 times is going to end up with the lamp being lit. So
yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We saw the Western Conference. I mean, how many games were such high scoring games, constantly back and forth? The Oilers had multiple games where they came, the Oilers Calgary series specifically, just 8 to 7 games constantly. And then meanwhile, in the East, it was like, 1-2, 3-2 games.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that if you happen to get ahead, they can score goals at will in bunches. Every line of the Avalanche can put the puck in the net, and they've done so against pretty good goaltending. There's maybe a little bit of consternation of some of the fans out there, their backup goaltender having to come in, like in the Nashville series, but they've just shown it even in the regular season, but especially in these playoffs, that if they're down, they're resilient and they'll come back. If you mess up, they're going to make you pay. So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't against the Colorado Avalanche.
They're quite like the old Lightning, who used to do that all the time and score tons of goals, but their teams, their style has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, at least for the Lightning. And heck, when you have Nathan McKinnon on the ice, I mean, that guy, he can score whenever he feels like it. It's largely what it is. The interesting thing to me too with the stats is going to be the power play and the penalty kill, right? So Lightning have been very good at the penalty kill so far. They struggled a little bit against the Rangers, and we saw a lot of the Rangers' success came from the power play, and Colorado's got a really good power play. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to have a big effect on this series. Personally, I think it's both those are going to come back down to earth. I don't think Colorado will be as good on the power play as they have been so far, because this is probably one of the better penalty killing teams they faced in the Lightning. But Yurika, your thoughts on that?
100%. Honestly, I think that you're going to get a smorgasbord. I think there's going to be a game where it's a shootout, the 5-4 variety. I think you're going to see a 1-0 defensive battle, probably from both teams. I think you're going to see one team go ahead and lose the lead. I think you're going to see just pretty much everything. There's no one style of play that either team necessarily gets saddled with. So Cooper is going to come up with some tactics, and the Avalanche are going to be in kind with their switching up lines or putting things in with the matchups, because we just have an all-star lineup between both teams. So I think that you're going to necessarily what you see in game 1 is not what you'll see in game 3 and 5, right?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It'd be, it can be kind of fun, I think, for fans, right, to see those different kinds of games back and forth. It's not going to be good for our heart rates, though, especially in those high-scoring games. But speaking of difference makers and how that can change too, let's look at some of the difference makers for this series. Starting off with the Lightning, I picked the one for the Lightning. I had Yurika give me a couple for the Avalanche here. For the Lightning, Braden Point is my difference maker. He only has 2 goals, 2 assists, and 4 points in these playoffs so far. But Braden Point might be coming back early in this series. John Cooper said he can't guarantee that he'd be back for game one, but he said it's extremely possible he'll be back at some point in this series. Personally, I really think Braden Point's going to play game one. It sounds like he was close to being playing in game 6. And then now with a couple of extra days rest, there's no doubt that Point's going to be back very soon in this series. And Yurika, as you know, he's got a chance to make a huge difference in this series.
I mean, it's amazing that the Lightning have been able to be as dominant as they've been without a Point, because everyone knows they're game planning against Stamkos. We know you're game planning against Kucherov. That's what allows the Points and the Palots of the world to get theirs. And they've got enough skill that's why they're difference makers here. And if Braden Point is back in the lineup, it's a huge problem for the Colorado Avalanche. He's amazing, and that's why we in Tampa, we all love him, and it's why you're going to have to game plan against him if he comes back. Because look, he's not going to be 100%, but even 80% of an amazing Braden Point is formidable.
Yeah, that's very true. And we mentioned the Lightning power play being low at 22.2%. Point's going to help that a lot. He's going to make a big difference on that power play. As for the difference maker, though, for the Colorado Avalanche, we have Nathan MacKinnon on here, 11 goals, 7 assists for 18 points. He's been fantastic for the Avalanche. We mentioned him earlier. He had that one play, Yurika, I can't remember. I think it was against the Blues, where he just went coast to coast, made a couple of ridiculous moves and put the puck in the back of the net. I heard people saying on NHL Network on the radio, they were saying, listen, that was MacKinnon saying, let's go, guys. I'm putting you on my back. We're winning this game. They actually ended up losing that game, unfortunately, but he will make a difference in the blink of an eye, and the Lightning are going to need to find a way to shut him down.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the youth movement of the NHL, this Nathan MacKinnon is a guy who has not only put himself at the top of that mountain, but only Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who we just defeated to get to this thing, have more points since 2018. So MacKinnon hit the ground running. He's done nothing but improve, and he's shown why he's probably one of the best, if not the best goal scorer in the league. Like you said, he can make things happen defensively. He dominates good in the defensive neutral zone. And then if you're in the offensive zone, look out, because top level goal scorer, yeah, but top tier passer as well. And when you have so many different options, especially on that first line, it's almost a cheat code at this point to have a guy like Nathan MacKinnon when you already had a Landeskog. You have all these guys that can put the puck in the net.
Cale Makar,
dude. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll get into him too, man, because and he's a defender too, right? So it's unfair, the toys. And I mean, only the Lightning are the only team that I think fans can look at and say, wow, we just have this embarrassment of riches. The only other team that's similar to that is the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, think about all the star power in this series.
Yep.
Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, Andrei Vasilevsky, Braden Point for the Lightning, Cale Makar, you got Nathan MacKinnon, and the list just goes on and on. There's so much. Amazing. This is going to be a fun series, Yurika. This should be great. Yeah. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be a great series. It's going to be a battle back and forth. But Yurika, a big difference, and I want to get your thoughts on this the most because you've watched a ton of Colorado games, is the difference in who is going to be in net. Because we saw, unfortunately, Darcy Kuemper suffered an injury earlier on in these playoffs, and well, it hasn't been his show as of late. So looking at the stats here, Darcy Kuemper has a .89 save percentage with a 2.65 goals against average, does not have a shutouts in these playoffs. He's played a couple more games. And Yurika, help me out with the pronunciation here. It's Francois?
Francois, yeah. They call him Frankie. So yeah, you're
Frankie. I like that, Frankie. I'm gonna call him Frankie. Frankie, it's a good nickname, but
easy to go. Yeah.
Frankie, he's got a .906 save percentage, a 2.86 goals against, and he does have a shutout as well. He is 6-0 in the playoffs. Kuemper has the 2 losses, the only 2 losses for the Avalanche in these playoffs. So Yurika, I'll start with you. Who does Colorado start in net for game 1?
It's a big question mark because so last year we had Philip Grubauer, and he was amazing, and he has departed. And that's part of the chip on the shoulder was that the Colorado Avalanche had so much potential, and they had a good goaltender, couldn't put it together. So when you get a Grubauer goes away, they went out and got Darcy Kuemper to be that kind of veteran person, knowing they had Frankie sitting there. But, both of these guys, Frankie hasn't been in the NHL for more than 3 seasons. Kemper's been around for about 5 more seasons than that. So with Kemper being banged up and coming back in, do you put the guy that you think is better in net, or do you ride the hot hand and just who's been able to fill in as Kemper goes down? But with this amount of rest, it really, the only person that knows that is going to be the goaltending coach and the players that are seeing that on the ice. Personally, I think Frankie's doing a great job, and maybe I'd ride him, because Kemper, whether it's the injury, whether it was something that was holding him up towards in the middle of a couple of these series, he hasn't been the top level, and maybe the team galvanizes behind the backup that has to come in. But for whatever reason, they've played really good defense in front of Pavel. And I think that if you're going to ride that hot hand, maybe you're sending a message to the rest of the team that, we still have to play great defense against an amazing opponent, that no one is shortchanging the Tampa Bay Lightning. Don't get me wrong. But bringing Kemper in now might be a little bit too much of flipping and flopping, and we'll see what happens with Francois in game 1 or game 2, but that's where I would go.
They say having 2 great goaltenders is a great position to be in, but honestly, I don't envy those coaches in making those decisions, because if you put one guy in and he gets shelled, then you look like the bad guy. And if he does great, you look like the genius, but it's such a tough spot to be in. Honestly, I really don't know who you go with. The thing with Kemper too, and that injury it was to his eye, remember, as well. So you got to wonder how much that's going to affect him. Frankie's been so good for them. He had that one shutout against the Oilers as well, which nobody saw coming, I don't think, at all. So he's been good. But there's no question though, as well, though, whoever they have in the net, both these goaltenders are kind of similar when you look at the stats. There's not a huge difference between either of them. So I don't think it really matters at the end of the day who's starting in game 1.
Yeah, I think you would have said that Kemper is lights ahead. However, for whatever reason, we have seen the ceiling rise on Pavel, and he's answered the call. We talk about next man up and things like that, and he's done everything that's been asked of him, and the team has been playing really well around him, and so he hasn't lost in the playoffs yet.
Well, hopefully, for at least for my sake, I know the Lightning hand him his first loss if he's the goaltender in net for sure. But next, let's take a look at our keys to the series. So, Yurika, I'm going to give you my keys for the Lightning, and then you can give me maybe some for Colorado or something like. You can give me your take on these as well. But for the Tampa Bay Lightning, here's what I have. So the first one is to take advantage of the rust, and what I say by that is, listen, Colorado's had, I think, about the same amount of days off as the Lightning had between their series against the Rangers after they swept the Florida Panthers. Same situation for Colorado. There's no question they might be a little rusty coming out of the gate. The Lightning need to take advantage of that, just as the Rangers did in those first 2 games. If they can steal one in Colorado, that's going to be huge for them. That would help them steal home ice and give them a big advantage. As for the second key, stay out of the box. We talked about all of Colorado's star power. We talked about how good they were on the power play. Do not take those too many men on the ice call. They were really good at it against the Rangers. They were much better. We've been harping on that all day over at the podcast on RBLR Sports as well. But stay out of the box. Don't take those silly penalties. They were good against the Rangers. Continue that. And then the third key for me for the Lightning is lots of shots. Keep putting on net. Like we mentioned earlier, we don't know who's going to be in net. The Lightning have a lot of star power. This isn't Igor Shesterkin, as good as these 2 goaltenders in. If you put shots on net, good things should happen.
Yeah, right. Own the puck, shoot the puck. If you do those 2 things, you're going to be pretty well. The problem is that the Colorado Avalanche they match up very, very, very similarly too.
That's true.
And it isn't just talent. The Colorado Avalanche have a solid work ethic. If you look at second fewest scoring chances 5-on-5 this entire year, if you look at, they do score a bunch, but they also are 7th in the league in goals allowed per game. So, and it's been consistent. The Avalanche, again, we're talking regular season, but they've been consistently good the entire time. They haven't had the long losing streak or the lull that the Lightning have had for the last couple of years, but the Lightning have gotten that find a way, the resiliency tag, and things like that. For me, that's one of the keys for the Avalanche is that literally no lead is safe. No lead is safe with the Colorado Avalanche. Like the Avalanche score as in bunches and bunches. They do give up some goals, but I think their system is built around that. Like they know they're going to give up 2 or 3 goals, and it's just built in that. Well, we're going for 5. Like
100% right.
They're going for 5. They say give up 3, big deal. That's why they didn't go out and get a super splashy goaltender. They're like, no, we can get a veteran that just does the job. Because as long as you give up less than 3, you're doing great, and that's been the key to success to get them here. But defensively, I mean that's how do you puncture the tire in a phenomenal offensive team like the Lightning? And I think that the Avalanche, one of the key is they have to suffocate in the neutral zone, which is what they've done all year. They have the second lowest opponent possession time in the league. And it's because they want to make you make mistakes in the neutral zone and not just get back on defense and go coast to coast like we talked about. They can do that with McKinnon. Makar can go coast to coast, blue line to blue line, and score goals. However, it's playing in the neutral zone and owning 2/3 of the ice instead of just one, right? And I think that rust is a phenomenal point that you brought up. We'll see. Rust. The Lightning, it took them a couple games to get the rust off, and then of course they amazing 4-game. I don't know what do you call that when you gentleman's sweep is when you lose 1 game.
When you lose 1, right?
How do you lose 2 and then just sweep the next 4? I don't know.
You called it the late bloomer sweep on RBLR,
bloomer, right?
Which I think is a pretty good one.
But the key is the Avalanche. We brought this up earlier. They're not amazing on the penalty kill. So how does it regress to the mean? Is this just a weakness the Avalanche are going to have? And at the end of the day, is it going to be the amazing power play that we score goals, but we give up too many goals on the penalty kill, right? I guess the last question mark that I'll bring up is, you said penalties. Wouldn't it be just fate that brings these two teams? Because I think the Avalanche are another team that are just like the Lightning, where they give up these weird like basic penalty, too many men on the ice. Like it's amazing how you can be this talented and this well coached and still, like, it's almost like they're too excited to get out there and right. and play, because they know that they're going to do something well. But I'm going to add on to that they're very similar to the Lightning, that they're also not very good at faceoffs either. So I think that's a huge opportunity that the Lightning give up, is that they don't win faceoffs, and that's going to play right into giving more opportunities to Colorado, which you don't want to do. But somebody's got to win the faceoff battles, so it might as well be the Avalanche if they want to win this series.
I think that's why so many people are excited for this series, because it's really like looking in a mirror a lot for these two teams. They're so similar. And it's hard to say, well, these guys should be able to take over in this category because they're so good at turnovers, but it's basically the same thing for both these teams. And I think that's going to be a lot of intrigue as well. And going back to the rest and the rust thing, one advantage that the Avalanche have is they're starting the series off at home, which I think will help them out a lot. It's definitely harder to be sitting, waiting all day long. And then you got to travel as well and be on the road. I think that makes it harder. And we saw that with the Lightning because it is very hard to play inside of MSG. But that could help the Avalanche having that home ice and getting off on the right foot here as well. So
every little bit is going to, everything is going to be come down to when you and I talk again after the series. I guarantee you we're going to talk about the little thing here and the little thing there, and that's all the difference in this series.
There's no question. It should be a fun one, though. So let's get to everybody's favorite part of the show. Let's do series predictions, Yurika. Okay. I'm going to go first. Yep. I've got the Lightning in 3. No, I'm kidding. I always love to make those jokes, but in all seriousness, listen, this is going to be tough for the Lightning. It's going to be a battle. I really see this going 6 games at the minimum, but more than likely it's going to be 7. The key for the Lightning, though, is they've got to steal at least 1 in Colorado, and then win at home, just like they did with New York. So I'm going to go Lightning in 6, just because I'm a little confident and I am a big Lightning fan, a little bit of a homer. So I'm going Lightning in 6, but I would be shocked if this goes less than 6, and would not be surprised at all if this goes 7. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be back and forth. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch. But Lightning in 6 for me. Eureka, what do you got?
Man, all of my friends and family are watching this right now because I have not told anyone. And I'm getting text messages, I'm getting Facebook messages, I'm getting tweets of left and right, because I'm a man of two flags, right? I was born in Colorado, and you know, the Avalanche are my parents, right? They've raised me, and then I chose to move to Tampa, so this is where I live and love. It's like I've married the city of Tampa. So who do you pick in a fight between your mother and your wife, right?
It's a tough spot. So most people will call it a win-win, but let's be honest, it's actually kind of a lose-lose.
Right. So look, I'm buying all the merchandise that has both the logos on them. And I did make a joke to one of my best friends that, like, I just don't know what logo is on my Stanley Cup merchandise yet. You know, either way, I get a hat and a t-shirt, but
there you go.
All jokes aside, to be serious here, I agree with you completely. This will be a very, I hope that this is all of the hype that we're putting on this. I hope that it lives up to every single minute, every single possession, every single shot, right? And this is why I believe it will also go very long. I said earlier, there's going to be blowouts. There's going to be defensive battles. There's going to be, I think the Lightning are going to win one game by 7 goals. I think the Avalanche are going to turn a crazy, where is Vasilevsky? Oh my God, how did he even do this kind of game? And I think there's going to be everything in between. I believe that both teams are going to win on the road. And I believe that it's going to be the full tilt. It's going to go 7. And I believe that it's the Avalanche are a team of destiny. And I believe that they have that same chip on their shoulder that the Lightning had in when they got swept. The Avalanche have been, you can't even get out of the second round for so long.
Right.
Then they built this team. They drafted well. They built around their superstars that they've brought up from their homegrown. Sounds very similar, right? And they went out and made key acquisitions. Like, sitting at the bottom of this roster is Darren Helm, right? Sitting at the bottom of this roster is Eric Johnson, a guy they dusted off the scrap heap 3 years ago to lofty heights, and then he went down, and they've built him to be a key contributor that has built the Cale Makars that they now sit with. So from top to bottom, I believe the Avalanche are going to win this series in 7 games, and it's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be amazing. And just like, I'm giddy. I don't know what to do. We have 48 hours since we're recording this.
When is it? Wednesday?
It's yeah, I keep looking at the schedule to see what day it is.
And then just wait for Wednesday and all the anticipation that's going to be building up all day long for the game.
I'm not wearing my heart monitor. I'm not going to do it.
Right. We might have to be admitted to the hospital at that point because it's going to be so high.
Yeah, Apple will send an email, and there'll be people knocking at my door. Not going to do
it. It's going to be a fun series. I personally, I kind of hope it does go 7, just the battle, the back and forth, and giving NHL fans what they want. And listen, if there's any team I'm okay with passing the torch off to, it's definitely the Colorado Avalanche. Listen, for the Lightning, no matter what happens, this season has been a success. Back-to-back Stanley Cups. Back in the finals again, and Colorado is one of the best teams they've played, quite honestly, over the last 3 seasons, probably. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a fun one. Also, we'd love to hear from you guys, our listeners, as well. Let us know in the comments down below. What are your series predictions? Who do you have as your difference makers? Any and all thoughts? We always appreciate your comments. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video if you did enjoy this content, so you don't miss out on more just like this. Yurika, thank you so much for coming out here and joining us. Guys, don't forget RBLR Sports. Go check them out. I will link it down in the description. I'll link their Twitter there as well. Be sure to give them a follow. But Yurika, thank you so much for coming out and joining us.
Always a pleasure. I can't wait to do this all over again with you, Jake.
Absolutely. It's been fun, guys. And that's all for us today. Just remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are still your defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Go Bolts.